My name is Conor Ibrahiem and I'm the Artistic Director of Arakan Creative.
Conor, were you born in the UK?
I was.
Whereabouts?
Here in Bradford.
Is that where you
back
grew
in
up?
'76. Grew up here, born and bred.
Gosh, so you've always lived in Bradford?
Pretty much. I did move to Stockport for about 4 years in the early noughties. My kind of ambition was to get to London. At that stage I was very much focused on acting. But I did a swift U-turn and came back in 2005.
So you got as far as Stockport?
Got as far as Stockport.
Better
than most.
The train ticket run out?
Not quite. I got a job and I met my future wife. So I had strong reasons to return.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say you wanted to work as an actor. You've been involved in theatre for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I studied performing arts in college, local college, from 97 to 99. And then my main ambition was to become an actor, and then I kind of launched myself into that. For a good 10 years, I gave it my best shot. Excellent. So yeah, my experience ranges from theatre to TV to short film, etc.
Yeah. And would you mind telling us how you became inspired to participate in theatre?
It wasn't just theatre, it was the world of performance.
Yeah.
My inspiration was Christopher Reeve, Superman. Every Christmas I'd sit in my little sledge in the living room and watch Superman come on TV, and I was in awe and inspired by this world where a man could fly. So that's where the seeds were sown. And I thought myself as a 5-year-old, I've got options here. I can grow up and be something like a policeman, an astronaut, secret agent, or an actor. But if I become an actor, I can do all of them. So I was thinking on those levels even at 5. So that's what inspired me to become an actor. And then by default, as an actor, you kind of tread into different areas of performance, as I say, theatre, film and radio and what have you. But theatre, why did that stick? I suppose because it was one of the easiest options I could go into to sustain myself as a professional, and also in terms of financially as well.
So what inspired you with Christopher Reeve? Initially,
yeah. As I grew older and I matured, I realised as an actor I was getting I was going for specific roles which were perpetuating a stereotype. Terrorist, taxi driver, doctor. Been a doctor about 3 or 4 times, Dad would be proud, bless him. So, I kind of ticked some boxes in that respect. But alongside all that, I was becoming more religious. It started in 2001, around the time of 9/11, although 9/11 had no impact on my decision. I just felt this natural kind of drawing toward Islam. And I thought maybe there's a way to combine the two, because I had this burning question: can I perform? Is it halal? Is it permitted? Is it forbidden? I did my research, and it is, providing you stick to certain kind of loose, some boundaries, and the loose kind of rules are really, no, nothing illicit and nothing depicting history which is inaccurate. I was fine with that, no problem. So in 2005 I went to Hajj. Mashallah, I was blessed with the opportunity to go to Hajj, and I think it was an inevitable collision course where my arts and my religion was going to cross over. And the idea for Arakan was born shortly after that, but it was just an idea. And the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, this is probably one of the easiest things to get into, because making films costs a lot of money, whereas theatre can be more achievable. And I've got lots of experience as a performer. I just need the skills to be the more business-minded approach to it. And that's really how the idea of Arakan was born. And there's only one other company in the UK that specialises in this kind of work. So I thought, well, yeah, it's about time another one opened. It's been a good 10 years since that first one opened. And there's nothing in the north. So that's really my reasoning behind it. And, and here we are today.
That's quite fascinating. It seems like you've had quite a varied journey already. Yeah. Initially, you were working as a job in actor.
Sure.
And then later made your own decision and made your own direction.
You have to. You've got no choice, really. No matter what profession you are in terms of a freelancer, you have to make a decision at some point. Once, especially if you get married or you start a family, can you sustain yourself? Well, realistically, you can't. So the worst case scenario, you take a job in McDonald's. The best case scenario is you still sustain a finger in the pie of what you love doing and make a living from it. And I'm blessed to be in that second example.
How did that journey vary though, from being a jobbing actor to later on deciding that you wanted to set up a company, Arakan, that fit more your religious ideals?
Different, yeah. It was, you know, it was naturally a whole new ballpark in some ways, because you're seeing things from the kind of holistic point of view. An actor is the end result of a massive pre-production process, and I'm curious by nature. You know, when I was a kid, I always wondered how plugs worked. I always wondered how the robot worked. So I suppose inevitably I was always going to wonder, how does the world of performance and arts work? And that curiosity was, you know, intriguing. And the more I discovered, the more I thought, I can have a go at that. I'm fairly certain I can do an okay job. And I continue with that. And because I've been out of the work loop for a good 10, 15 years, you know, the 9 to 5 thing, I itch for it now. I yearn for it. I love it. My wife hates me for it, but I love it. Maybe because I've been out of that kind of, I've not become bored of it because I never did it. So I now embrace it. I also love my work. So I don't need hobbies. This is what I do.
And do you miss being an actor?
Yeah, it's my first passion, my first love. I still do a little bit, but you know, percentages wise, you're talking 10% out of 90% of my time now is only in acting. People ask me, well, did you write yourself a part? You know, you're writing and directing your own stuff. Yeah, I could do that, but that's easy. I don't feel like I would have earned it in the same way I would have done for casting. Yeah. Casting is, you know, it's so fulfilling when you go against 50 or 100 actors and you get the part. You don't get that when you write your own stuff. I could do in the future, but writing and directing is enough, as well as driving the van and loading the set. I won't have time to learn lines. Yeah. So I miss it, but I'm very happy, very happy. I never thought I would be doing this. Not just acting, I'm very happy doing this.
What does this offer you that acting doesn't?
More than a clap and a smile from the audience. It gives me something that I never thought possible, and that's changing minds. Even if it's one. You know, some of the feedback forms I read, it overwhelms me. I think, crikey, that's how much impact I've had in 1 hour of performance. I could never have done that. Well, probably not have done that as an actor, especially to that level. And I think that's what really drives me now, is leaving this world when God calls me, and He'll say, well, what impact have you had? I can hand on heart say, well, I've done my best and I've changed a couple of opinions, and you know, that's an amazing thing that you can't buy. You have to earn that, sincerely earn that.
Have you ever done anything apart from working in theatre for a living?
Yeah, my first job was a cleaner in Asda. I actually had 2 first jobs, and the second one was working in a restaurant. Have to tick that box. Local restaurant chain, and I very much enjoyed it. It was very hard. I think I jumped in the deep end too much. I was doing my night shift at the local restaurant, and then I had to get up at 6 in the morning to go and do cleaning at Asda. So I didn't have much sleep, and sometimes I just slept through it. And, you know, but those were my first jobs. It was fine. You know, and I worked in a call center. What else have I done? I think that's it, to be honest. I worked in a takeaway after that as well. But acting was always that kind of main focus, and yeah.
What does being British South Asian mean to you?
I don't think about it much. Yes, it's part of who I am. I am British, I am South Asian. But I'm too busy with work to think about the in-depthness of where I'm from. Obviously, it relates very closely to my work. I think I am unconsciously competent in that area now. I know it. People who are not and are learning that tend to focus on it more, and that's fine. I don't mind that. I don't mind the curiosity. But I think sometimes you can bang on about it too much. Mm-hmm. We are what we are. You know, just take me as you find me. Easier said than done. Yes, I know. But what does it mean to me if I really have to think about it, if I go into my kind of feminine mode and think deep? It means being part of something. It means belonging. It means something I can call home. Familiarity is something I think humans need. You can feel lost without it. Even if I was on my own, I had no mother, father, wife, anything, at least I know I've got something that's, you can't take away from me. You can't die. It's there. So for me, it's about familiarity, I suppose, is one of the key words. a sense of belonging, that you're part of a wider family. And I feel blessed to be part of both worlds, literally.
British and South Asian.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel unique in some respects, that I'm able to experience both, take the best of both, try and work on the bad bits of both, and be a testament and an example to those. Well, look, my parents, you know, got together despite the differences, and they were talking 60s and 70s here. You know, back in those days, it was even more harder. Think East is the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Your parents were from different
backgrounds? Yeah, dad was from Kashmir in Pakistan, and mother's from Wakefield, English. You know, and if two people can overcome the differences, and the challenges there were greater than they are now in some ways, why can't the rest? I'm not suggesting we all get married, but you know, we can have some mutual respect for each other. So yeah, I feel lucky in kind of with my genetic makeup, I suppose.
So related that to your work then, do you characterise your work, any part of it at all, as British South Asian?
One element, yes. The hook, or the primary kind of angle, if you like, that we approach is Islamic theatre. Don't take that at face value though. Islamic in the sense, yes, we look at stories within the Islamic world.
So this is the work you do with Arakan?
Absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much, if anyone asks me what I do, I say, depending on who's asking, I say, well, I run a theatre company. And if they say, well, what type of work? I say, it's Islamic theatre. By that I mean it's stories in a historical context from the Islamic world, or modern day issues to do with Muslims. Extremism, hijab, you know, forced marriages, whatever. But it's wider than that. Islamic in its ethos. If you look on the website, it says something on the lines of, it's been a while since I wrote it now, but family friendly, it's clean entertainment, and it's about spreading truth. That's what Islam is, or just a part of what Islam is. So it's about a form of entertainment which is telling the truth as it is, being respectful, not excluding anybody, and being halal. Because there is a massive misconception, to an extent, some of it is true, where Western media and arts is saturated with sexualization and bad language and immoral behavior, and that in turn can potentially influence the audience. That's another thing I'm trying to battle against, in my small way. That we can produce entertainment without going down those cheap routes. That's what I'll call it, cheap. And I'm glad in some ways I never made it as an actor, because then they would have been very hard decisions to walk away from. You know, here's a job, here's $1 million, you got to go and kiss so-and-so, you got to start effing and blinding at Scarface. Damn, I'd have been pulled in different directions. And I have had moments of that, where there have been parts where I've asked me to do X, Y, and Z, and I thought, God, what am I supposed to do here? So, yeah, that's how I suppose I would characterise the primary. But yeah, South Asian work is a part of that, because I'm from that background.
It influences the Islamic work you're doing, is that what you're saying?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah, the South Asian work influences the Islamic theatre?
I wouldn't say it influences particularly. It's just whenever there's an issue that presents itself, you know, in the ether, that's something that will capture my attention. I think, how can I try and address that issue through the arts? I wouldn't say one particularly informs the other. I would say that they are particularly entangled. And there's a lot of misconceptions still to this day, which is, it's beggars belief. You know, we can put a man on the moon, we can't sort this obvious stuff out. Anyway, if it wasn't for that, then the likes of people like myself wouldn't have something to do. So, you know, so yeah, sometimes one can inform the other, but it doesn't really direct me. It's just if there's an issue, I'll try and address that.
So is your work particularly associated with the Muslim South Asian community then?
Yeah, because I am Muslim South Asian, so I am more familiar and more, you know, I'm the expert of my own experiences, and that's what my experiences are. But that's not to say that I wouldn't delve into, or haven't delved into, issues that relate to the wider Muslim population. For example, hijab. For example, the element of extremism. For example, mental health. Whatever. Because baseline, we're all human, regardless of how we are dressed up afterwards as we grow up. The names we are given, the colour of our skin, and the clothes we buy, and whatever. Baseline, all humans laugh and cry, and they bleed, and they want the best for their families, unless they're evil by nature, and then that's a different story. But you know, we all have those common factors, and Arakan does very much include work from other areas. It's not a primary focus. That's all.
Do you think, considering British South Asian theatre then, you know, however you want to interpret that, do you think it's still useful to consider it as a distinct genre?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, people from a certain culture or background or faith have a particular name, and there's a name for a reason. It's to distinguish and identify, or it can be to prejudice. Depends who's, you know, pulling the strings. For me, it's to identify. If I just class myself as a theatre company, and if someone wants a specialist service to cater for a set group, then how on earth they're going to find me? You need, in a positive way, you need labelling to an extent. So it's very much relevant. It instantly tells the mind and categorises, and it hones down what you're looking for. That's the way. That's my kind of answer to that, to be honest.
And, you know, having worked quite extensively with a range of companies in your time, do you feel as though amongst the various British South Asian theatre makers, the British South Asian theatre practitioners, do you feel there's a common thread between them in terms of stories and aesthetics or the audiences are trying to reach?
There's bound to be, and there is. And the wonderful thing is there's so many differences as well, which I suppose the outsider might think, wow, really? You know, because within the South Asian context and the Muslim context, you've got so many variables of castes and castes and obviously the Shia Wahhabi Sunni thing, and you know the religious affiliations and parts of the world. Geography, dance is something that one Asian group might do what we don't. Singing is something else they may do, we don't. So you know there's a natural common thread. Common language tends to be one of the most things, and obviously some similar issues are addressed as well. But there's so many variables, which makes it more and more interesting. Mm-hmm. But it's nice to have the commonality. You know, it's again, it goes back to having the familiarity as people. I think we need that.
Coming back to your own artistic journey then, what was the reaction of your friends and family initially when you decided that this is what you were going to do with your life?
Well, my father passed away when I was 12. Now, he had certain ambitions for me before he passed on. He talked to me, and from what I can remember, you know, in particular, he wanted me to go into law or doctoring, and they kind of, in some ways, stereotypical dreams. Nothing wrong with it, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being a doctor or a lawyer. But for me, I was never scared of, never worried about perception in that respect, because I was born different. So my kind of map of being different was already laid out before I had no decision in that. And I was already viewed as different. You know, sometimes I'd get an Asian kid calling me a white B word, or I'd get the opposite. And I'd laugh at it. I think this is ridiculous. Where am I supposed to sit? So I wasn't scared about what people would think of me. And I did get the odd frown. My auntie used to say, come on, give up, get a real job. That's fine, I appreciate it, you know, I know you mean well, but I love what I do. Overall, I think I've been lucky in some respects. I think if I was a female and I was wanting to go in this, I'd probably find a bit more of a problem. Mm-hmm. Not exclusively, but to an extent, I think there'd be a bit more of a problem. But no, I think I've been lucky in the sense that I've been generally encouraged, especially when you start yielding results. You tend to find people tend to be more friendly than they initially were. And then you can start sieving through who the genuine people are and who are not. But I take note of these things. And for me, the genuine ones were there from the beginning and were always encouraging. Even if they said, look, give it up, do something else. They didn't mean ill toward me. They were just concerned about my welfare and my future. So I think I've been lucky. In terms of the reception, I was always hesitant about opening Arakan, specialising in Islamic theatre, simply because I didn't know what people would think. It's seldom been done. And it's the first one in the north. So even now people think, wow, Islam and theatre, how does that work? And so people are always a bit conscious. Okay, can my kids come watch it? Are you going to portray Islam in this way or this way? You know, I'm getting this kind of religious affiliation trying to pull me one direction or another one. I'm trying to be as neutral as possible. So no, I'm just trying to, you know, do justice to the Quran and portray it as best as I can. So, but thankfully my fears have been, nothing's proved to be problematic. You know, I've not had any death threats or anything or silly of that. I've had the odd comment which suggests I do something a bit different, but that's it. And mashallah, I've been very lucky in that overall it's been very welcoming. people encourage it and they yearn for more, but I can only do so much. But I know I'm on a positive footing with the general Muslim South Asian community. And it's very hard for another reason. It's not just because of the Islamic element, it's because of the likes of TV programs that perpetuate the stereotype. And as soon as they hear you're involved with the arts or the media, that they get on the back foot. Oh, okay, so you're going to portray as that? No, I'm not. I even had to put a disclaimer in our recent production, which I can talk about, that we are not portraying the Prophet. Why did I do that? It's because of that bloody YouTube video last year from America. Why did I have to do that? I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to apologise for something I know I'm not doing wrong. But I felt I had to, just to appease the question marks out there. And I don't blame them. I don't, honestly, but I hate the status quo. But fine, sometimes you've got to do things in business and work that you're not particularly happy with, but it's for a wider good. So as long as I'm transparent and people see the trust is there, I have got nothing to worry about.
Do you feel as though there's ever been any, this is a question being posed, was there any trauma within your artistic journey so far that you've been able to transform through your work into positivity?
Personal or business? Or both? Kind of. Going on the personal bit first. In my upbringing, especially when my father passed away, there was a lot of issues around money. That's defined how I operate in terms of my business ethic. I'll always do my best to be straight down the road. And money, obviously, the stitch of money goes through every seam of life. That informs very much how I operate as a businessman. I'll always make sure I pay people as soon as possible and what they're owed. That's because I've had a bad experience with money. It was a family divider. That's all you need to know in that respect. It's a family divider. And it can control you if you don't control it. That's one thing. I've heard stories in my present day from a close family member who works in a field which is traumatic day in, day out. And that leads me to very much want to work on issues within the South Asian community. And we've done a production a few years ago actually about domestic violence among South Asian women. And we had some very good feedback actually. We were very lucky that we had such a receptive audience. And some of the comments were overwhelming. I referred to something like that earlier and I can elaborate if you wish. But yeah, there is definitely from a personal perspective, a lot of things do kind of interfere, or not interfere, impact or influence, inform my direction. Again, whatever pops up as a problem, I'll try and try. Professionally, yeah, you have minor blips, but I wouldn't say there's anything major happened that's affected me in a big way. Again, I suppose I'm blessed in that respect. And if, God forbid, anything did happen in a major way, I'd stop, pause the button and assess the situation and move forward in the best possible way. It wouldn't scare me away because I know I'm not doing the wrong thing. I know in my heart. So, God will test me and I'm expecting that. So I'm just kind of waiting for the next punch, as it were.
Yeah. You've got quite an interesting transnational experience in your background as well, in the sense that your father comes from Kashmir. How do you feel that informs your identity and the person you are today?
It doesn't have a massive impact in the sense that I've never been there. I've never been to Pakistan or Kashmir. But I'm aware of the issues that exist that have been there for many years. And looking at Pakistan in a wider context, I'd be a liar if I didn't say it affected me, in the sense that I'm just very saddened to know that education is so poor and yet corruption is so high. In the country my father was born, was raised and came from, I never saw those attributes in him. I'm not saying he was perfect, but I know he wanted the best for his son and those around him. So the Kashmiri or the Pakistani, I'd love to, I keep praying, I hope that I can have a positive influence on the country, even if it's on one person or a child or something. It's a strange thing to have a sense of belonging to somewhere you've never been. I don't know, maybe it's because you lack, my father's been gone many years now, 20 odd years. So I think when you're distanced from something you want so badly, you start looking for anything, any kind of connection to it. And for me, one of the biggest connections would be where he was born and bred. So perhaps my relationship with Kashmir, Pakistan will enhance, and maybe a bridge will be born through my work. Who knows? And if it does, I'd welcome and embrace it and try to make the most of it.
Of course. Going back to your work again now, what audiences are you hoping to reach with your work? I think you've answered this a little bit. But
primarily Muslim. Don't apologise for that. And why should I? Because pantos cater for a said audience, usually school children or families. Particular types of plays, Shakespeare applies to a certain type of audience, and we appeal to a certain type of audience. Someone I worked with a few years ago wanted to stop working with us because we were just focusing on Muslims. Well, that person obviously was a bit blinded because they didn't realise that it wasn't just Muslims. We never say on our posters, just Muslims are allowed in. That's ridiculous. But we're not going to apologise for providing them with a story they can relate to. But they're all human stories of struggle and pain and happiness that we as humans can all relate to. So it's open to everyone. But the primary focus, yes, is Muslims. By and large, because they've got nothing to relate to in theatre, or very seldom things. And when theatre companies do something South Asian or Muslim related, it's a one-off. We are continuous. And so, why not? We're just like the corner shop. We're providing South Asian food or Islamic food to those who need to eat that food. Yeah. But we welcome Bernard and Susan or Lucas from Poland. Fine, come in, welcome, have a taste of it. But yeah, that's our primary kind of audience.
And is it particularly for the audience and the community in Bradford? Is it particularly the South Asian Muslim community?
Simply by default because we're based here. But we have attracted people from farther afield, and if we are fortunate to go outside the district of Bradford, then yeah, we kind of latch onto that contingent of the local society. And yeah, this is a short answer really.
And who are the audiences that you've been getting? So if the previous question was about the audiences you'd like to get, who are the actual audiences?
Pretty much the ones we aim for. We just wish there's more numbers. Because bearing in mind, it's still a relatively new field or new concept is Muslim theatre, South Asian theatre, especially with that Muslim, more focusing on the Muslim element. So you need to build up that trust with them. Right now, the entertainment options for said group are thus. B4U, pumping the volume too high in their cars, weddings, books, seldom anything really to do with theatre. So we did build up that, and that's fine, the journey has to start somewhere. So I'm hopeful in time that the name will carry amount of cachet or trust that people automatically, I know what to expect. I know the brand will go there and numbers will spread. And we do manage to latch onto those we target. It's just about numbers really. Yeah.
How do you feel in your work you reflect in the everyday lives of the people who are coming to see your plays? Sorry,
rephrase that.
In your work, how do you feel that you're reflecting the everyday lives of the people?
Oh, I see. As accurately as I think as possible, really. I mean, I do a lot of research beforehand. If it's historical, then you can't really, you can't develop a time machine and go back to know exactly if you're portraying it accurately. But one thing is a constant, that's we're all human, and we will react in a certain way to certain situations. So as far as the human reaction and the situation is concerned, I'm human too. We always forget that it's us and them. It's not. I'm an audience member as well. I can be moved by certain things. I'm just privileged to be in a position to be one of those who can influence to an extent. So I like to think, and again, from the feedback we've had, we've had stuff like, that accurately portrays, what we've been through, what we've experienced, what we're feeling. That's not quite what I feel, but doesn't mean to say someone else does. You can't please everyone, but by and large, the percentage is vastly on the scale of we get it right, and that's really encouraging. Otherwise, I'd probably just shut up shop.
Yeah. One of the questions asked here is relating to rural communities, how they feel disconnected to theatre. What do you feel about it?
Rural from a South Asian or Muslim context?
Within the British context.
Yeah, well, what do you expect? I mean, if you're rural, you can't access every single service. Whether they're disconnected, Whether they care is, is another matter. If they have concern, then I'm sure they'll make the effort to go to a local town. We're based in Keighley in West Yorkshire. And literally, if you look, we've got a 360-degree view of the countryside, and there's plenty of rural areas around here. But there are local theatres, it's not very far. If there is a disconnect, I'm not suggesting that, we don't remedy that or try to remedy the problem. There are ways around it, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's the biggest issue in the world. People can tour, people can actually do site-specific theatre, they can hire out houses, halls, hell, do it open air. So I think it's just a case of, if they want it bad enough, we'll provide. Or even if there isn't a want, we'll just come in and provide that interest and that new hobby or interest, if you like. I don't see it as a major problem. If there's a shortage of it, we'll try our best to try and remedy that.
Of course. How would you say, since you created Arakan, or even perhaps since you've been involved in theatre, that your work has evolved over time? So yeah, let's take it back actually, and let's address this question from your career individually, which would include Arakan and previous to it. How would you say that your work has evolved over time, particularly in the context of the changing South Asian experience in the UK?
It's bound to evolve. We are organic, and we feel the atmosphere that's out there. We smell the air, and it does naturally inform. If you don't go with the changes and roll with the punches, then...
What do you think the changes have been?
For ourselves, obviously extremism is way up there, and that has informed to an extent, well, for now, to a large extent actually, the kind of work that we produce, but also we feel compelled to apply funding for, to survive, obviously, but also because, well, we feel an obligation to approach that problem and try and deal with it in the best possible way. Otherwise it might be left to someone else's devices, and I don't know who that person or group would be. So we've done 2 projects which makes up 50%, if you like, or near enough, of our work output in 3.5 years of existing. The first one was literally, as the name says, extremism, which was the tail end of the Prevent agenda. I had the idea to do a play on extremism before the opportunity of funding came along, so the idea was already alive. I just didn't have the means to realise it. When it came along, I embraced it, and thankfully there was no one pulling my strings, no one saying, do this, none of that. I was very, very lucky in the person I was dealing with at the council was saying, look, I trust you, I know you'll do the right thing, go for it, basically. So I was very fortunate. I'm not saying that I dislike working in that way where you've got to kind of move with the times, as it were. The times are what they are. I just wish it was happier sometimes. I wish there was a case of that there wasn't enough comedy in the world, and we were compelled under a Prevent agenda to create more comedy. But that's not the way it is it? However, we do want to do more comedy. We've done no comedy so far, anything lighter. We do want to do that, and we hope to build enough reserves to do that. But the second project, which relates to extremism to an extent, is Islamophobia. The project funding came around because the foundation we applied to, in their wisdom, realised there was a big problem. So they put out a tender. They weren't looking for specifically theatre, just any group or organisation which could try and tackle this problem in a West Yorkshire context. So we felt compelled to apply. We felt we were well placed. We felt we knew the issues. And we felt we were probably one of the few organisations that could bring an artistic approach to their outcomes. And we were blessed, by God's grace, we were blessed to get that funding for 3 years, and we're going to approach that. I wish I could bang on a different drum sometimes, sure. You become well versed in certain areas, but like anything, if you keep eating potatoes, you're going to throw up at some point. You want some variety in that meal. And if no one's presenting that, then we've got to start creating it. And I think I've developed a taste for just being entrepreneurial, if you like. Because if nothing happens for you, what do? You just sit and moan about it, you go and do something about it. Go and do something about it. I'll try at least. At least you can say you tried. So I know that if no one is presenting those comedy opportunities, then I'll just try and create my own, even if it's a small production at first, and build up that arm of the company. So a lot of our work is informed, but we hope that will change, and we hope we can start doing our own thinking and our own output as well.
Mm-hmm. So given that changing South Asian culture in the UK, and also how that's been reflected in your own work, Where do you generally feel the state of the theatre is today? It's quite a big question.
In terms of overlay that with the status quo of the the South Asian culture.
Yeah.
Where do I feel theatre is? Here's a big question. Put it this way. If you've got a problem in your community, the last thing you're going to think about is theatre, with respect. And that's me saying it. And that could potentially just shoot myself in the foot by distance. But let's be realistic, because again, I'm part of the community as well. People would rather have a community town hall meeting with an MP and talk about real issues, by and large, because that's where things happen for real. Theatre can help inform policy and help change thinking. And I'm a great advocate and I do believe in this sincerely. But ultimately, if you only just cut to the chase and get it done quicker, because theatre can take many, many months of preparation, whereas a meeting you can organise in a few weeks. And action can be quicker if they can get the finger out and get it done. And no, red tape and stuff. So I think it does have a place, absolutely. But it's only going to be picked up when people are relaxed enough to want to go and see it. It's always going to be there, and we're creating a need in some ways for the South Asian Muslim context. We're creating a need. I don't think they realise they actually... Do we need... Yeah, we do. We do need entertainment. Of course we do. We need to relax. We can't be working 24/7. So there's always a need for it there. Sometimes it peaks, sometimes it dies down, but there's always going to be that basic need of relaxation or entertainment.
And with that basic need of relaxation and entertainment, how do you feel the industry is faring? How do you feel...
A theatre?
Yeah.
In general, poorly, unfortunately, simply because of funding. A lot of good organisations have gone by the wayside, which is a crime. Pure and simple. Some organisations get money for what? For pushing paper and lip service. And other organisations are doing genuine work, and I've witnessed it myself. And they're not getting the funding. So something's very wrong. Something's very wrong. And it's not so much down to the people applying for the funding. It's the idiot decision makers, and I can say that because no one funds me, right? I'll take it back if I ever go to the Arts Council or the likes of those. But some of the decisions are ludicrous. It just doesn't make any sense. So there's more going on there. We've all got common sense, by and large. And if something doesn't fit right, something else is going on. And I'd like to know what the politics is behind certain decisions. Sometimes it's someone's pet hate. Don't like that company. Sod it. Do you realise the impact you're having? Well, good luck to them. We reap what they sow as far as I'm concerned. But I suppose the more I think about it, the more I want to be in a position of that kind of control. Not to say that I would love reveling in power and control, but the ability to do good. It's just an overwhelming idea, a feeling, a privilege. A new prince that was born recently. There's that debate of whether people should be given power and respect, or they should earn it. Well, I think there's nothing wrong with people expecting. People are going to expect to respect, that's fine, but you still got to earn it, And for me, bottom line, if there was no kind of hierarchy in place and we were all democratic across the world, I'd be very much in favour of getting in the place because of your merits alone, not because of who you know, not because of your narcissistic kind of traits or whatever. It's got to be because of who you are and what you believe in, if it's right. So the status overall, it will be the same forever, unfortunately, because there's bad people out there, and that ain't going to change. So I'm not going to be idealistic. It's going to all stop one day, and all the right companies will get the funding, and all the bad ones won't. No. So my moan will continue. Hopefully less so.
Yeah. Given that the British South Asian theatre experience, or the British South Asian cultural experience, is quite varied. And you've definitely, working within a section of that variety. But given that it is so varied, do you feel that generally British South Asian theatre accurately reflects these communities?
Does it chuff? No. It doesn't reflect it. No, I said before, it's so varied in language, in custom, in ideology, in belief. To lump it under, I can see why it's easier. If you said Gujarati theatre company or Kashmiri theatre company, and within that you've got the Jat clan and all this business, Yeah, you've got a lot more, kind of titles to tick off. I can understand why they do it, but it does not accurately reflect.
You can understand why, who does what?
Well, the way, the reason the name has come into being.
Oh, I see.
I understand that. South Asia, it covers such a vast, area. But it's the same as anything else. Like, for example, we say American cars. Well, what are you talking about? Mustangs, Fords, Chevys. So I understand that there's a need for that, but I think they should also be almost on that form where they ask you a question about ethnicity. They should break it down as well. What kind of British theatre are you doing? British Asian theatre are you doing? Where's your specialty? I never get that. So it needs to be a bit more thought through and dug a bit deeper. That's what it needs. Some extra bolt-ons, if you like.
So do you perhaps feel that the term's redundant now?
No, I think it needs to evolve.
Right.
Yeah. It needs to change with times.
And so, is that what you do to make it more relevant? Is to have it acknowledge the differences within the community?
I don't do it because I want to make the title different. I do it because the passion's there. I think by default, you will start changing names anyway. It can be a bottom to top or top end or top bottom approach. For me, sometimes again, if you wait for things to happen, sometimes they don't happen. So if you don't start making those motions, for example, laws come into being, generally speaking, these days, because we've got pretty much every law covered. It's because there's a big gap in the market, if you like. And I'm just trying to think of anything recent in terms of new laws, nothing comes to mind. But basically, if something goes very, very wrong in society, the bankers, for example, or press regulation, there you go. It's reactionary. So therefore, laws come, or near enough laws sometimes, on the back of that. So I would say that we're very much of that kind of approach. We'll keep doing what we're doing, and perhaps eventually a name will come along to suit what we do. But I'm not going to wait around for the title. I'm going to do what I do. Providing the name is respectful and accurate enough, I'm happy with it.
Taking British South Asian theatre the way it is today, though, what do you feel are its main challenges, and what do you think it needs to improve? Is it just about the name?
No, not just the name. You have to have the right people on board. Organisations are made of people, not equipment, desks and computers. It's about people. But you know what? That's not really fair. That's across the board. It's not just British Asian Theatre. It's any organisation. British Asian Theatre is, in many ways, the same as any organisation on the planet. It's a service or a product being delivered by people. And if it's to survive, all it needs to be is sincere and honest. That's all it needs. It's not rocket science. Obviously, we're a smaller minority in that respect in the theatre world. It does need to keep evolving and keep changing in terms of the output to reflect society. Otherwise, it's not relevant. No, it's not harming going historical now and again. Fine, we should never forget where we came from. But it needs to be always relevant. And it shouldn't just be about British Asian issues as well. It should be about how we're perceived by others. So if they did, for example, if X, Y, and Z Asian theatre company did a play about a South Asian issue, why not cast it full of white people and do it from perspectives alone? How we're perceived by the other. Still British Asian, because the issues are very much in there. So if people start thinking, I'm sure people do, I could be wrong, I've not researched it, but if there was projects along those lines as well, then that's a great sign of evolving.
Yeah, certainly. And that's what your recommendation would be?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget your neighbours is basic. It's okay focusing on ourselves. The government doesn't. The government, their laws and the taxes and all the services they provide are for everybody. They're not just for the elite. So you have to think in a neighbouring human context, because that's the way that's the planet we live in. And that has to reflect to an extent within a lot of organisations and in theatre as well, because theatre is a reflection of life. And that's we are part of a variety of cultures and religions.
For sure. Conor, it's been wonderful speaking to you so far already. I loved your honesty. Thank you very much for that. Would you mind ending by telling us about one of or any particular works of yours that hold the most importance for you?
All my children are precious. It's difficult. It's difficult. Two, if I may pick two. I'll be brief.
Cool.
First one is our first project. It was the mental health production. It was a comment said by one of the Asian chaps.
What was it called?
Centre of the family. A chap in the audience saw it, and his feedback was this: I will go home and make sure my daughter-in-law doesn't suffer like this anymore. That for me was one of the best feelings ever, reading a comment like that. He didn't, I can't remember if he left his name or not. I think it was anonymous, but still, he didn't need to leave his, that kind of comment if it didn't have a real impact. And as far as I'm concerned, that play was completely worth it if that girl he's talking about has changed, or her situation has changed for the better. That's one. The second thing is portraying Islam as it is and as how it should be. Our recent production was spread by the word, but it was spelt sword with the S cut off, because the myth is spread by the sword. Actually, deep down, you can't spread anything, truly, but by talking to someone. If I was to force you to do something, you might do it surface level, but deep down, it's not really affecting you. And the same is said for Islam. So for me, our recent project was by far one of my greatest achievements on a wider scale, fighting for the cause of Islamophobia. Well, not fighting for the cause, rather than combating it. Because there's a massive misconception on so many levels. I am a Muslim. I know full well why I chose the faith, what compelled me to continue practicing it. And I know full well that all these far right and all these kind of ideas about it are completely misguided. So if I can not only speak up for my artistic side, my British side, my South Asian side, I'm damn well going to speak up for my Muslim side, because it's a massive injustice. So I'm privileged to be in a position where I helped, hopefully in some way, tackle that by setting it in the 7th century. And that for me is one of my proudest achievements. But the other ones have got their own little specialties as well, but those two in particular stand out for me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Conor. It's been wonderful speaking to you.
Likewise.